Welcome to Communication That Connects, where we share resources and strategies to help you communicate with clarity, with creativity, and for change and lasting impact. Today, I want to talk to you about something that I've entitled, Don't Run from Feedback. Don't run from feedback. I used to be afraid of feedback. I remember when I was a youth pastor, there were times when my senior pastor would call me up and say, "We need to talk." And I would try to find every excuse to try to put that meeting off, because I knew that he was probably going to say something negative like, "How come you're always late in coming to meetings?" Or maybe he was going to share with me something that wasn't necessarily positive. But as I've grown, I've learned that feedback can actually be one of the best ways to help you grow. So now I don't wait for a supervisor or a boss to give me feedback. I've actually learned to invite feedback. So here's my leadership tip for today. Don't run from feedback, invite feedback. You see, every leader needs communication flowing in two ways. First, you need to be willing to receive feedback, and secondly, you need to be prepared to give feedback. So there's two questions that I've learned to ask whenever I want to invite someone to give feedback. The first question is, how are you doing? How are you doing with your family? How are you doing in your role? How are you doing in your job? How are you doing? And the second question is, what can I do to help? So as a pastor, I would sit down with my departmental directors and say, hey, how are you doing? How are you doing as a youth leader? How are you doing as a family life leader? How are you doing? And then, what can I do to help? Those two questions go both ways. So if you're the leader, sit down with your team members one-on-one and ask them those questions. How are you doing? And what can I do to help? But also, as a leader, from time to time, I invite feedback. I sit down with my president or with my superiors, and I reverse the question. I ask, hey, how am I doing in my role? And then what can I do to grow? And what can I do to better help you and help this organization? If you ask those questions, by God's grace, you'll be able to grow and become the leader that God wants you to be. Even Jesus asked his disciples, who do men say that I am? Because see, even Jesus learned not to run from feedback. So I challenge you to follow in the example of Jesus. Don't run from feedback, but invite feedback so that you can grow. But also seek to get God's feedback every day through prayer so that you can learn to lead and communicate like Jesus.